Well, all right. Welcome to Barrel Full of Daryl Show. That's me, Daryl. In this podcast, I selectively discuss music, movies, and throw in a bit of mirth. For each show, I select an artist or band and a movie that is personally significant to me. You may not be familiar with my selection, but I hope to change that. And by the way, I've heard your comments regarding my sibilance, and I have taken measures to reduce it. And thank you for bearing with me. So here we go. For the music section today, I got a bit of inspiration from my son in law, Kinsey, and I'm confident that you have heard of the Beatles, also known as the greatest band to ever record music, followed immediately by Pink Floyd. Now, it would take me several episodes or one very long one to properly discuss the Beatles and their music catalog. So today I will discuss the album The Beatles, also known as the White Album. The album jacket is solid white with no printing, only the raised lettering stating, almost faintly, The Beatles. Thus, the album is best known as the White Album. Now, if you are very young or have been living in a cave, the band was composed of Paul McCartney, John Lennon, George Harrison, and Ringo Starr. They were active from 1960 to 1970, releasing 13 studio albums and 4 films. The White Album was their 9th album, released in 1968, and displayed the beginning of the band's demise. Now, as for my favorite Beatles album, I am torn between the White Album and Abbey Road. So I must now declare that they are both my favorites. I can get away with that. Now, the White Album is a double album, meaning 2 vinyl records with 4 sides, and it contains 30 songs. Now, it followed the album Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, and it is a distinct departure from that album, demonstrated by the bare jacket as opposed to the very colorful jacket of Sgt. Pepper's. Now, the band's cohesiveness was dying at this point, and it shows in the songs. The album is fragmentary and contains diverse genres such as folk, country rock, ska, hard rock, and psychedelia. It is hailed as one of the best albums of all time, and I agree. Now, in their previous albums, the Beatles songs contained mixtures of genres within the song, but not so for the White Album, in which each song is of a single genre. This means that if a song was hard rock, it was purely hard rock, such as Helter Skelter. A country song was purely country, such as Rocky Raccoon. Now, the White Album also represents a departure from the LSD-inspired psychedelia of 1967 and earlier. Now, in previous albums, Lennon and McCartney were the primary songwriters. During recording sections for the White Album, George Harrison became the third songwriter, but most of his songs were rejected by Lennon and McCartney. Basically, at this point, each band member had begun to assert themselves as individual artists, and they were often at odds. John Lennon stated that the breakup of the Beatles can be heard on this album. There were several other factors that contributed to the end of the Beatles. During the sessions, Lennon brought his partner Yoko Ono along with him, which was unorthodox as the band members generally worked in isolation, with no girlfriends, wives, or visitors in attendance. Yoko's presence was pervasive, and the other band members resented her and John for it. Matter of fact, I believe at times Yoko was stated as being the cause for the band's breakup, but there were many factors. Another factor was that Lennon and McCartney disliked each other's new songs. Lennon stated that McCartney's songs were cloyingly sweet and bland, and McCartney said that Lennon's songs were harsh, unmelodious, and deliberately provocative. Now, George Harrison wrote and contributed 4 songs for the album, and Ringo Starr had 1. Now, only 16 of the 30 songs featured all 4 members performing together. Now, the rest was on their own, etc., etc. Now, the final factor in their breakup, well, I can't say it was the final, but one of the big factors in the breakup was the death of their manager, Brian Epstein, who had managed them throughout their career and was their cohesive factor. The band members were shocked and fearful for their future. Lennon was quoted as saying, "We fucking had it now." There were arguments regarding Epstein's replacement. 3 of the 4, minus McCartney, selected Alan Klein, further widening the rift. Regardless of all the distractions and divisiveness, the Beatles created an epic album that occupied many hours of listening to music as a teenager for me. Each of the 30 songs is distinct and great. Rolling Stone magazine stated that it sounds like 4 solo albums under one roof. Now, the White Album remained at the top of the charts for weeks and was certified as 24 times platinum. It will be tough for me to decide which of these songs to add to the Barrel Full of Darrell playlist. I will add several to give you a feel for the diversity of the music in this great album, and please give them a listen. Now for a word from our sponsor. Howdy, y'all. This is Ernest T. Bass talking at you. I'm shift manager at Piggly Wiggly in downtown Scratch Ankle, Alabama. The other day I was pondering the recent increase in our customers, and I mentioned it to a few of my employees. And Minnie Mae Bubba told me that her uncle and cousins had been mentioning it in a podcast called Barrel Full of Darrell. It's crazy. She went on to say that the patronage had not increased for them, and maybe the listeners had heard so much about the Piggly Wiggly that they decided to come shop with us. So I spoke to Johnny Ray Bubba about it, and he said I could take over the sponsorship if I reckoned to. So I'm going to give it a shot, see how it goes. Anywho, come and see me at the Piggly Wiggly located on Main Street in Scratch Ankle, Alabama, right next to Floyd's Barber Shop. Thanks a plenty. Okay, we're back. My pick for the movie today was really an easy one. There is a movie titled Yesterday, which is also the name of a great hit song by the Beatles. The movie is a comedy with a little bit of romance thrown in. However, if you don't cry during the last 10 minutes, then you are basically inhuman. So, it's a story about Jack Malik, struggling British singer-songwriter who plays a guitar doing gigs in the local pubs. Now, Jack is well played by Himesh Patel. His girlfriend is lovely, and she is well played by Lily James. Now, one night during a freak 12-second global power failure, Jack is hit by a local bus and wakes up in the hospital. Following his recovery, he is having a picnic with his friends and starts playing the Beatles song Yesterday. His friends are in awe and ask the name of the song as well as who wrote it. Jack cannot believe that they were unfamiliar with the song and had not even heard of the Beatles. So back home, he searches the internet for the Beatles and finds nothing. He searched through his album collection and his Beatle albums were missing. So Jack realizes that somehow the entity of the Beatles was now non existent. So he begins performing their songs and passing them off as his own. And his girlfriend Elle suggests that Jack record a demo with a local music producer, and he ends up performing on a local television station. Now, who happens to catch this performance? The one and only Ed Sheeran, played by himself. He contacts Jack and has him open for his concert at Moscow. So Jack opens with the song Back in the USSR, and the crowd went wild. Ed is very impressed, and after the show challenges Jack to a songwriting duel in which they had a very short time to create a new song, and the others in the group would name the winner. So Ed plays first, and it's a nice song, piano music, and his singing. But Jack plays the song The Long and Winding Road, and Ed accepts defeat. So Ed brings Jack with him on a trip to Los Angeles, where Jack continues to blow people away by performing the Beatles songs. Ed's manager, played superbly by Kate McKinnon, signs Jack to her label and engineers his rise to global fame. So Jack continues to play the Beatles songs and continues to gain popularity. When he could not remember the words to the song Eleanor Rigby, he flies to Liverpool, the Beatles' hometown, to get inspiration, which he does. So the record label prepares to launch his debut album, and Jack convinces them to have the launch party / concert near his hometown, Gorleston-on-Sea, which he performs on rooftop, as the Beatles had done for their final album. Now, Jack had noticed that he was being followed by two strangers during his performances. While he's waiting in his dressing room for the concert to start, these two people knock on the door and he lets them in with much hesitation. It turns out that these two were Beatles fans and very aware of the Beatles, and they thank him for reviving. They also give John Lennon's address to Jack, and he goes to meet him. Now, Lennon did not become famous and has led a simple life with his now deceased wife. Jack discusses with him being torn between his love for Elle and his newfound fame. But John Lennon tells him to pursue the one he loves and always be truthful. At that point, Jack asks Ed Sheeran if he can join him on stage at Wembley Stadium, and Ed agrees. After performing, Jack seeks out Elle in the crowd and has her escorted backstage. He confesses to the audience that he had not written any of the songs and acknowledges the Beatles. He also proclaims his love for Elle, who is placed on camera in front of the crowd. Finally, he tells them that he is uploading his entire catalog for free download on the internet. And the crowd goes nuts, and so does his manager, who threatens to sue him for sabotaging the album's release, and she basically chases him all over the place. Jack decides to leave his stardom behind and have a life with Elle, and he becomes a music teacher. So this is a really good movie, and Himesh Patel delivered an outstanding performance of all the Beatles songs. If you're not familiar with the Beatles, this movie would be a good introduction for you, and I highly recommend it. Word of the day. This is a long one. Let me see if I can pronounce it. Kakoraphiophobia. 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 It means the fear of failure. So if you have this condition, you would not want to be called upon to spell it during the spelling bee. Joke of the day. How did the congregation stop the streaker running through the church? Caught him by the organ. Question of the day. And first we'll discuss the answer to the question from last time. What causes morning dew? You know, that little wet stuff on the ground. So the air that we breathe contains water in the form of water vapor. Now this water vapor condenses into droplets if the temperature is right, and this temperature is called the dew point. Basically, the air is pregnant with water vapor, and when the dew point is reached, it gives birth to the droplets, which we call dew. Yay! So today's question is, why do we park on a driveway and drive on a parkway? We may discuss that next time. So please do me a favor. On the episode, click on the send me a text button and send me a comment about the show or ask me any questions. Now, over the course of 12 episodes, this being the 13th, I've made requests like this, and I typically go ignored. So if you love me, just reach out and let me know. And if you haven't done so, please check out the Vera Daryl Spotify and Apple Music playlists that accompany this podcast. There are a few songs by all of the artists I have discussed with you, and I think you will enjoy it. Now, as I said, you can contact me by clicking on the send me a text button in the episode or directly at bfodpodcast@gmail.com. So thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and talk at you next time.